And we are back here at the Azuritas channel with Kent Van Gogh, and we have Karen here watching and following us as well. Thanks, Karen. Kent, what we're going to talk today, that's the second part. We're going now deep dive on gateways. Welcome.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, last time we talked, which was a great conversation, by the way, really enjoyed that. I think we kind of covered the basics of Brigade. How does it work, speaking in very general terms. And one of the things that we had talked about was gateways as, the source of events. And I did show a diagram. Let me see if I can pull that up again right here, where we have in the blue box, we have really Brigade itself. And sitting on the edge of that blue box, we have these gateways. And gateways are really the brokers, if you will, that receive events from some upstream system. It could be something like GitHub or Bitbucket, Docker Hub, ACR, working now on integrations for Slack and Teams. So there's really a number of sources that don't, let's say, they don't speak Brigade, right? So they talk to a gateway, and the gateway speaks the native language of the event source, and it turns those events into Brigade events. So I thought the thing that might make all of that more concrete, because this picture, I apologize for the barking dog in the background. So this picture is very general. So I thought maybe if we took a look at probably our favorite gateway, probably our most sophisticated gateway, it might give people an idea of what you can actually accomplish with Brigade. So the one that
sounds good. I think there's a lot of interest on gateways and how is that connection with the external world, and also for the community to contribute and create new ones, bring new ideas, and see how that can be extended.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. My hope is that if we get more knowledge out there of how gateways work, that people may, discover that, hey, it's really easy to create a gateway, and they might go ahead and create some interesting integrations, which would be great. And I think I mentioned it to you last time we talked. But if anybody does want to go ahead and create some integrations, I would be happy to reserve some of the awesome swag that Karen is working on for anybody who wants to contribute something useful. So
sounds good.
Just putting that out there. And that includes you, Jorge.
I'm looking forward to that.
So the one I think I'm going to talk about today is the GitHub Gateway. And so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you that we dog food all of our own stuff. So all of the so Brigade 2 itself, we're running that currently in what we call our dog food cluster, right? Eating our own dog food, so to speak. So we have this dog food cluster. It's running Brigade, and it's running a number of different gateways as well. So you can see right here a little window into all of the pods that are currently running in our dog food cluster. And you see a number of pods that are Brigade related, in the Brigade namespace. And you see a number of different gateways here, but here in particular is the GitHub Gateway. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'll kind of show you how I set that up, and I'll show you what it's capable of doing.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah. So as I said, we're dog fooding it. So the first thing that I'll show you, I'm going to kind of step away from Kubernetes for a minute, and we'll just use the Brig CLI, and we can list our projects, and you can see that we're using Brigade 2 to build all of these different projects. So we're using it to build Brigade itself. We're using it to build gateways for Azure Container Registry, Bitbucket, Cloud Events, Docker Hub. Foundations is kind of a library that we use so we don't, repeat ourselves over and over again with basic things that we need. We've got the GitHub Gateway, metrics, noisy neighbor, which is kind of a little chaos engineering thing that we've worked on. We've got an SDK for TypeScript and JavaScript. And we've got different containers and things that we build. We've got Go tools and Helm tools and Conoco and things like that. These are all just kind of tool chains that we build into a container so that we have them handy. So these are all different projects that we're building with Brigade, and they all map basically to repositories that live under the Brigade core organization. Now, if we were to look at the settings for this organization, particularly developer settings, and under here you see GitHub Apps and OAuth Apps. If we look at the GitHub Apps, we'll see right here, ignore this second one. This is a Brigade 1 thing, but this is Brigade 2 up here. Brigade 2 dog food GitHub Gateway. So this is a GitHub app that I've set up, and I've pointed it at our gateway. So you can see right here the webhook URL. We have this app configured to send events to github.brigade2.io/events. And we have, let's see, install app. So you can see that we have installed this GitHub app into all the repositories of the Brigade core organization. So for any of our own repositories, when somebody opens I think somewhere in here, let's see, we are permissions and events. Let's see. So anytime there's a check suite is triggered, or somebody comments on an issue, opens or syncs or closes a pull request, pushes a branch, stars the repository, starts watching the repository, any of these events, they get fired off to this URL. Now that, of course, is right over here. It's the Brigade GitHub Gateway receiver. So this receives the webhooks. Now, what does it do with those payloads that it gets? It doesn't really do anything more sophisticated than just extract some critical information from it. What's the name of the repository, etc., and turns it into a Brigade event and fires it off onto Brigade's event bus. So pretty simple so far. And I can show you that every one of these projects is configured so that it subscribes to events from that gateway. So I can show you an example. So I'll just open up my editor here, because I have copies of all my project definitions here. So we'll just take one at random. We'll take like Go tools, okay, and we'll look at the project definition, and it's all pretty simple. It's stuff that we looked at last week, but it's a real example now. It's not Hello World anymore. So you see we have some event subscriptions, and we're subscribed to events that come from the GitHub Gateway. In particular, we qualify it by saying they must be from this particular repository, the Go tools repository. And then you saw over here that there was, you know, a pretty big list of events that we're potentially firing off to the gateway, which the gateway in turn turns into Brigade events, puts it on the event bus. But we're not interested in all of those. We're just trying to do CI here. We're not interested in, oh, somebody started our repository or started watching it. We're interested in things like a check suite was run or rerun, or one individual check within the suite was run, or something was pushed to a particular branch. So those are the 4 that we subscribe to here. So this whole subscription really subscribes us to 4 things. It's these 4 types of events, provided that they came from the GitHub Gateway and this repository in particular. So it's probably a good time to pause and ask if you have questions. That was a lot there.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. How people are doing that? Like, if they're not using Brigade, how they can relate with that feature? Like, it's like GitHub Actions could do something like similar there.
Oh yeah, you absolutely could do a similar thing with GitHub Actions. You could do a similar thing with Travis CI or Circle CI or any of those. And you know, and again, I don't want to mislead people into thinking that Brigade is just a tool for CI, but CI is a use case that Brigade happens to handle very, very well. And I really like talking about the GitHub Gateway because besides being our most used gateway, because we use it for our CI, it's also one of our more sophisticated gateways, and I can talk about that. You saw here that there's actually 2 components to this gateway. We have the receiver that receives the webhooks from GitHub, but we have this other component here called the gateway monitor. And that's actually a whole separate process and a separate pod that's running all the time in the background, and it's actually monitoring the status of all events that were created by this gateway. And it's not just looking at the status of the event, it's looking at the status of the worker that handles the event, and it's looking at the status of each individual job that might run as part of that workflow. And as it observes changes in the status, it actually reports it back up to GitHub. So that's something that we're really proud of with Brigade 2, something that we didn't necessarily build any capacity for in Brigade 1. You know, our APIs that we've created have really given us the possibility of creating these very smart gateways that can do 2-way communication, asynchronous communication with the original source of the event. So it's not a one-way street anymore. It's not just that you know, GitHub sent an event to the gateway and the gateway sent it to Brigade. It's not a one-way street anymore, because now the gateway can watch the status of the events that it created, and it can report the status back to GitHub, which is enormously useful. I can show you what that looks like.
Like, my understanding is that you know, people watching these is we discussed like a CI you know, CI use case, but Brigade's like a framework that we can build something like, you know, GitHub Actions, but more advanced than now. We have 2-way communication. Even something like Azure Functions, when you do the trigger integrations, we could build those things. You could build your own framework if you want. And then that's what we're trying to get the use case for people to understand how they can leverage it, how they can use, you know, Brigade as a framework to build whatever they want to build. Is that the right assumption then?
It is, but I think if we're pragmatic about it, or practical about it, I guess, there are certain use cases that it's very good for, and certain use cases that it's not very good for, and we might have touched on that last week. CI is a very good use case because when I open a pull request, I just want it to be tested and I want the results back. I don't actually care about it happening right this moment. I'm going to open the PR and I'm going to come back after lunch and I'm going to check on it. It doesn't have to happen right this moment. I don't think I would use this as a framework for, like a smart home or something, because I'm kind of a smart home fan. I have, all smart switches and all kinds of, integration in my house. And I thought a little bit about what kind of compelling demos, could I make that would involve Brigade, where, I could, flip a light switch and make something cool happen. It's really over engineering something, right? But it doesn't really necessarily work out well for things like that, because you have to remember that it is asynchronous. And when the workers that handle an event, and the jobs that the worker spawns, they're all asynchronous and they're all subject to scheduling constraints. So with Brigade 1, if you threw 1 million events at it all at once, it would try. it would try to handle 1 million events all at once, and it could bring your cluster to its knees. Brigade 2 doesn't try to do that. Brigade 2 puts a cap. It's configurable, of course, but puts a cap on the maximum number of workers or maximum number of jobs that can run concurrently. So, it is a good framework for doing all kinds of integrations, as long as you're willing to live with the asynchronous nature of it. It reliably gets things done. Can't guarantee that it quickly gets things done, because that all depends on load, how you've configured the system, and how big your cluster is. I mean, if there's nothing that I can do to, you have a finite amount of memory and CPU in your cluster, and there's nothing that Brigade can do to change that.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah,
you
so
have to watch the use case. Let's say that we can watch the use case and make sure that makes sense and is more like asynchronous, let's say not batch job, but something that to be schedule based.
Yeah.
And we can get response from that.
Yeah, and you mentioned batch jobs. You mentioned that last week as well, and that was something that I was thinking about after our conversation, because one of the gateways that's kind of on my to-do list that I want to write is kind of like a cron gateway. So you can just write a simple thing that you can configure to create a certain event on a certain schedule, and that's it. Very, very simple thing. So I mean, hey, Jorge, if you wanted to play with this, that would be a good one to do, because it would be very, very simple.
I will.
Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, just to really drive home the point that I made earlier about the two-way communication that's possible with these gateways, I just wanted to show. I just picked a PR at random from Brigade itself. So this is the Brigade project. This is a PR I selected at random. It's actually a docs PR. But you can see down here all these different checks that have run in response to this PR being opened. And, some of them are like Netlify things and everything, because, that's where we publish our Brigade docs and everything. But you'll see quite a few of them, have themselves the Brigade logo here. These all came from the gateway. So when this PR was opened, the gateway received a webhook from GitHub. It sent it on to Brigade, and then it started monitoring that new event, waiting for the status of not just the worker that handles the event, but also all of the jobs. And as those statuses came in, it updated GitHub. So we can actually even we can click details here. This job seems to have run my unit tests. We can even click details here, and there's the logs from the unit tests. So here are all the checks that ran, and Brigade and the Brigade GitHub Gateway coordinated all of this. So I was lamenting a couple of weeks ago that we don't have a Brigade 2 compatible web UI yet. Brigade 1X had Kashti, and we haven't ported Kashti over to Brigade 2 yet. But one thing that we're very happy with is that with all of this two-way communication that the GitHub Gateway can do, we almost don't need Kashti, because we're sending statuses back to where the event came from. We're sending the statuses back to GitHub, and we can see everything right here in GitHub, and we almost don't need that other element.
Yeah, makes sense. What, and you send back, yeah, the other processing, yeah. And using GitHub API to send back, what do you?
Well, okay. So all of that was actually the complicated part.
Yeah.
The GitHub APIs are great, but they are a little difficult to wrap your head around. And so that was some of the more complex pieces that we've written. The GitHub Gateway is definitely the most sophisticated out of our gateways, but yeah, it's, you know, conceptually what it does is very simple. The implementation might be complex, but conceptually it's just monitoring the events that it creates and reporting status back upstream to GitHub, and that's how we end up seeing all of this.
Makes sense, yeah.
Now, most of these other gateways that we've implemented, most of them are one-way streets for right now. They're bringing the events into Brigade, but they're not sending any information back upstream. We will, of course, you know, evolve these as time allows to make them more sophisticated and make them send status information back upstream, you know, for the cases where it makes sense to do so.
Yep. But I'm assuming on that gateway, you kind of extending, if it's a container, we're going to have like a base container with all the TypeScript dependencies that you're going to use on that gateway, like GitHub SDK and all the libraries that we need on this gateway. Is that how you build the gateway? I probably guess what you're going to see now, but
yeah, so the gateways can be built using any one of our SDKs. So probably our most fully featured SDK is the Go SDK. So all of these gateways that are here in this dog food cluster, they were all implemented in Go. But we do have a TypeScript /JavaScript SDK as well. So somebody who's more comfortable working in TypeScript, for instance, absolutely, you know, could have achieved this same result working with TypeScript instead. So yeah, that's doable. There's also the Rust SDK that we have, which is a work in progress still. I don't think that will be done on time for Brigade 2's GA, but it's something that we'll continue working on, and eventually we'll release that as well. So there are options for people who want to create you know, gateways. There are at least, well, 3 languages or 4 if depending on whether you count JavaScript and TypeScript as a separate thing or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are options for people who want to go ahead and build things like this.
Yeah, sounds good. It looks like we have a lot of examples in Go using the Go SDK, in that one is the case. Then it'll be the same. We're going to import the Go SDK, the GitHub Go SDK as well. And we're going to leverage. And there's a lot of probably, if people I never used GitHub SDK before, if you probably Google that, you're going to find a lot of examples how to consume the SDKs that you're going to be needed inside your gateway. It's not going to be rock science, you just you have a lot of ways to get started. If even if you never used Go before, but
yeah, and I wouldn't recommend that anybody go and create a GitHub gateway. I would suggest use ours. This is all public, of course. Everything that you're looking at here is open source, 100% of it. So all of these gateways are either in an alpha or beta state right now, and we'll get them to a GA state in conjunction with the rest of Brigade. So all of this stuff is just usable right off the shelf.
Yeah, we're discussing something here that's not the final code. Your code will be your JavaScript, TypeScript code that's going to process those events. We talk about the gateway that's just going to get some event from external and create like a native Brigade event. It's not something that we have to write. We're trying to show how Brigade is flexible, dynamic, to be extended. But there's a lot of, like you said, gateways ready to go that you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But if you want to do something more advanced, you want to create your own for some reason, yeah, you can do it. And that's what you're trying to show today here.
Yeah, and especially a gateway that's a one-way street where it doesn't have to report anything back upstream. Especially something like that is very simple to implement. If you already know how to create a simple web server in Go or in Node, you're already halfway there, because you can receive event hooks, web hooks from some external system, and our SDKs are well documented. So it's as long as you can respond to an HTTP request and use a tiny little library, you can create some really interesting integrations very quickly.
Yep, sounds good. Sounds good. Now I'm going to do the cron job one. Trust me.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. Yeah, I would love that, and I'd be happy to help you out with it if you want to pair or if you need any help.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, go ahead. Show me what you want to show the code of that. How do you want to show these?
So you want to see the script that goes along with something like this? Is that what you want? Do you want to see code for a gateway, or do you want to see like the script that runs when these events are received, or what do you want to see?
If you want to quickly show the code for the gateway.
Oh yeah, sure.
And
yeah, so this is our GitHub Gateway, and as I mentioned, this is one of our more sophisticated ones, but it's broken down into two components. There's the receiver and the monitor. So each of these is a Go program that lives in its own pod, or deployment. Actually, is the case. Maybe there's deployments managing the pods. But like looking at the receiver, for instance, it's pretty simple. It gives you a little startup message, and it loads up a let's see. Okay, so we build an API client. We get some API client config. All we're really doing here is we're looking at environment variables to find things that Kubernetes set in the container. So we're building a Brigade API client. We build this webhooks service and a signature verification filter. This is so that we know that the webhooks that we're receiving are legitimate and they're not just from someplace random. They're actually from GitHub. We start up a little web server. It serves this events endpoint and a health endpoint, which is just a common Kubernetes thing for health checks. And we do a listen and serve. So it's all the webhooks from GitHub all come into here, and we could look at what this does. Here's the handler, so serves HTTP, and really it's just extracting a payload from the HTTP request, and it's passing it down to a service. It's called service.handle. So we do all the HTTP stuff here, and then we invoke a service that is agnostic of the words are failing me right now.
API server,
yeah, we have a service here that is protocol agnostic. It doesn't know how the request came in. So we handle stuff here. So we have an app ID, and we know the type of the event, and we have a payload. And this is going to be ugly, but we just have a giant type switch, and we run it through all the different types of events that GitHub might possibly have given us. And for each of those types of events, we go and we extract the interesting bits, and we turn it into a Brigade event. And so you see down probably towards the very end of the function, we're still in that giant switch, that giant type switch. But you see down towards the end here, we use the SDK to create an event. So pretty simple what this is doing. It's just listening for events from GitHub, and it's sending events to off to Brigade. Now, one thing that's interesting that this does, I'm just going to do a search here for source state. Okay, so an interesting thing that I do here is the events that we send off to Brigade. We label them with something called source state. So this is all information that got added to the event purely for the benefit of the gateway that created the event. So I'm saying that I'm tracking this event, and this event has this installation ID which is a GitHub thing. You don't need to worry about what that means. It's a GitHub thing. We know who the owner of the repository is. We know the name of the repository. We know the commit that's at the head of the branch. We actually save all of this information as part of the event, and we can actually query events based on this information. And that's where the monitor comes into play, because what the monitor component does is it's just always running, and it's saying, hey, give me any events that have progressed past the pending state that came from me, I'm the gateway. Events that have progressed past the pending state that came from me that are being tracked. And then it just fires up a loop, a go routine, something that runs in the background with, you know, a progressive back off and all of that stuff. And it just looks periodically and it says, okay, any change in status for that event, any change in status for that event. Well, when it finds changes to the status of the event or jobs associated with the event, sends that information upstream to GitHub. When it's all done, when everything has reached a terminal state, it just blanks out all of this source state. Again, it's just another API call to the Brigade API. It blanks out this source state, and now that loop that's always looking for things that this gateway created and ought to be keeping track of won't find that one anymore. So it's as I said, this is one of our more sophisticated gateways, but conceptually, I don't think it's that complicated. It's just the implementation that's a little complex. But conceptually, yeah, this is just adding labels to the events so that it can, you know, find them later and follow up on them.
Yeah, sounds good. You just create like a flow there, a workflow that you're receiving the event, you send it to Brigade to be processed, to be scheduled, to be, you know, to run. Once that being processed, be a JavaScript that probably can show that running, but then comes back for the monitor to be running in background as a background job, monitoring what's happening on the worker side. And once that change the state, you just notify someone or do whatever you want. We playing with GitHub, but you could do that for anything.
Oh yeah, this definitely is a repeatable pattern. I'm finding that I'm using the same pattern for Slack and Teams integration. So I'm building support for you know, like slash commands, you know, where you say slash and then you give it a command. So I'm building support for things like that. So you can fire off an event by typing a command in a chat window. But, you know, when that event reaches a terminal state, you might like to hear back. You might want to hear about it and say, oh, hey, the event that you created is done now. So I'm actually reusing this same exact pattern to, you know, with the Slack and Teams integration that I'm working on. It's the same pattern of you have a receiver and you have a monitor, and the receiver just receives webhooks and sends the event to Brigade, and the monitor is just constantly looking in the background for what are events that were created by me that I should be tracking and reporting upstream.
Yeah,
so,
I see a nice I see a nice use case there where we could, let's say, could be cloud events. That's more flexible, more generic. Cloud events, we could say, when you send me the event, just tell me what you want back or what you want to be monitored. Then if you say, I want back, you know, the state, or let me know when the state change, you know, they could tell us what they want back. I see one use case like that, probably using cloud events that to be more, you know.
Yeah, so I've got a cloud events gateway, but currently that's one of those you know, one-way streets. We're not sending anything back to the event source, but you know, if you want to open an issue on that gateway, if you've got a good idea for how that can become a two-way street and do something more useful, yeah, I would love to work on that with you.
Yeah, cloud events is a nice one because I see a lot of even, you know, Microsoft advocates. I know Justin doing some videos with cloud events being processed by Azure Functions, and we could do the same way. And because all the Azure events now could be, you know, Azure cloud event, we could be getting from anything from Azure, for example, is a good use case that we could dig a little bit. Yeah, let's that's probably another video just to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah.
But that sounds good. I think it's very flexible. It's a easy code. You know, you just build your API, you get the calls as a webhook, and you call a service to process, and you keep monitoring until the event change, and that's done.
Yeah, and like I said, we happen to be looking at one of the more complex ones right now. I mean, if I showed you one of the simpler ones, like the Cloud Events Gateway, you'd be pretty amazed at how simple it is. There's very little code here. This is it. This is how I handle an event and send it to, this is transport agnostic, right? So I handled all the HTTP stuff somewhere else, but this is it. I've got a cloud event, and I just turn it into a Brigade event. Done. This is really the core of this gateway. It's just like a dozen lines.
No, yeah, and like a cron job would be like that. Just get like a call, and just trigger. Don't have to say anything. Just trigger that event. That's it. Yeah, let's do it. I think there's a lot of gateways that we can write, to be honest. And
yeah, in fact, the cron job one could be even more interesting than these, actually, because so Kubernetes supports cron, right? There's a cron resource, I think, or not a cron. There's a, what's it called? Job, right?
Job, yep.
Which is different from a Brigade job. I want to be clear that a Kubernetes that Brigade jobs are not Kubernetes jobs, and there's reasons for that. But Kubernetes has jobs, and jobs can be scheduled using cron, if I'm not mistaken. So you actually, to do a cron gateway, you actually don't need that thing running in the background all the time. You can just have a Kubernetes job that is configured to wake up and send an event on a particular frequency. So the cron gateway can be a main program that's about this big, that all it does is send an event. You don't have to do any of the scheduling yourself, because you can make Kubernetes do that part for you.
Yeah, that's another way to do it as well. Then it's not like a gateway, it's just like triggering events directly to the Brigade API.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point, because our team has a bit of an internal debate about what counts as a gateway and what doesn't, because I say that a gateway is the bridge between an external system and Brigade, but if there is no external system involved, I say that's not a gateway, but it's gateway-ish, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you could write a cron, gateway, and probably just 10 or 12 lines of code. It's going to be a main program that does just this, and you can let Kubernetes handle the scheduling. So it wakes up and runs a pod that runs that little teeny tiny main program and sends your event off to Brigade, and then it's done.
Do you think that's like with the API 7 now, that's more flexible, even more flexible now on Brigade V2? Because before it didn't have like the API 7. I don't know exactly how you did before, but now it's just calling, API to create that event.
The way that it worked before, everything talked directly to Kubernetes. So if you used the CLI was using your credentials for the cluster to talk to Kubernetes on your behalf. There was no Brigade API. It was just the CLI was talking directly to Kubernetes, and the gateways for Brigade 1, they were doing the same thing. So they would talk directly to Kubernetes. They would every event was represented by a Kubernetes secret. So when you created an event, all you were doing was sending a secret off to Kubernetes, and that just a long term. It was a good minimal viable product, but long term, it just wasn't working out because it meant that integrating with Brigade meant that you had to do it directly through Kubernetes. And the thing that doesn't work out about that is that a lot of people could get value out of Brigade without being a Kubernetes expert. You know, a lot of times when you know we do this, I run my little script over in the side here, and I show you know what's going on in the cluster, but you don't have to do this. You know, all of that is hidden, and it's hidden well enough that people who don't understand anything at all about Kubernetes, as long as you understand containers, you're fine. And that's all thanks to the API, because now you know, you don't interact directly with the cluster, and the tools that you use don't interact with the cluster on your behalf. They interact with the API, and the API talks to Kubernetes.
No, yeah, sounds more enterprise, you know, grade product now with the authentication as well, API and all the things. No, yeah, sounds good. And more, you know, you rely before on the Kubernetes controllers to do the whole thing. Now you don't have to rely on those things. You just make sure that, you know, your gateways are running and receiving the events. You know, is scalable, let's say like that, and it's not like one single point of failure. You know, something happening one gateway doesn't mean that the other gateway is not going to be working.
Right.
Then if you want to make sure, you can even create your separate gateway for a specific application or integration that you want to do it. Then you don't have this noise neighbor anymore, things like that.
Yeah, and hey, you mentioned something a moment ago. You mentioned authentication. Now, last week or it was a couple of weeks ago, I guess, when I was showing you this stuff, I logged in as root because I said I'm just trying to be quick and dirty here and show you hello world. Since we're kind of taking a tour of my dog food cluster today, I've got that set up with all the bells and whistles. It's a production grade deployment, and so I'm thinking, can I just show you authentication real quick, because
go ahead.
I'm really proud of it. So I'm actually going to let's see, I'm on GitHub here. I'm going to log out of GitHub just so you can get the full experience here. Well, that's taking a moment. Did GitHub just give me an error? Okay, here we go. I'm signed out of GitHub now, and I'm also going to sign out of Brigade. So I can say Brig login, and I point it at my Brigade server. So api.brigade2.io. And I'm going to say -B for browser, because I want it to open this in my browser. So I do that, and it pops me over to GitHub. And I'm just going to go ahead and log in. And use my YubiKey here. And you are now logged in and may resume using the Brigade CLI. And now everything works. So this is what an enterprise grade production grade deployment looks like. You don't have to log in as root, and you don't need credentials for the Kubernetes cluster. You can log in using GitHub. You can log in using also any OpenID Connect provider. So Azure Active Directory would be a good example.
Yeah, it sounds very good. We have the same like API management, Azure API management, something that we have the same kind of integration and give more flexibility, for the users, and sounds very good. Do you want to show something else, or I think for that video is?
Yeah, I don't want to keep you too long. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably good for today. If you think that's enough material to keep people busy for a while.
No, I think it is. We have, deep dive on Gateway. If you guys have any ideas, people watching this, just ping us. We're happy to help you out with your ideas, and just think as Brigade as this is a building block that you can do a lot of things with them, and then there's a lot of libraries like you're showing here on screen that you can leverage. You don't have to start anything from scratch. You don't need a full Kubernetes controller to handle the process now. It's just a simple Go, TypeScript, or Rust code that you're going to write just to get the events and process. And it's a two-way as well. I think that's the most important. You can go very deep if you want, but still a simple code. It's not complicated to write those things. And maybe if I do one, I can record myself writing the cron job one, just to explain how to do it.
Oh, that would be great. I would love to see a recording of that.
That sounds good, Ken.
Yeah. So something you said a minute ago made me think. I've been saying, if anybody wants to, create some interesting integrations, I'd be happy to make sure that some of our new swag gets saved for them. But something else that I just thought of, we're at a really good point right now where if somebody does want to create some kind of integration, our team has the bandwidth and the desire to help them out. So if you think there's something interesting that you want to do with this, but you need a little bit of help with it, now is a really good time to be hitting us up, because it would be mutually beneficial, right? We would get new integrations out of it. We would get to test our system out more, and the other party can get some help from us in making it happen. So yeah, anybody who wants to play with this, please find us on our Brigade channel on the Kubernetes Slack. We're always happy to answer questions or help out. We could even pair for a little while.
Sounds great. Yeah, the Brigade channel on the Slack channel for Kubernetes is, I think, is the perfect place to reach out. I did that last week as well.
Yep, I saw that. I saw you.
I was falling for a while, but I'm glad to to be closer and see following the channel as well. And thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks, Ken, for joining again, and hopefully we can do that again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jorge. I always enjoy these conversations.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks.